Hi, this is Kevin Trainer, and I'd like to welcome you to my tutorial demo that's associated with Chapter 5 of the Murach MySQL second edition textbook. Chapter 5 is entitled How to Insert, Update, and Delete Data. And what we're going to do here is we're going to be working again with the same database that you're going to be using in your exercises, the My Guitar Shop database. And I'm going to recommend that you take a look at the EERD diagram for that database. And in this particular tutorial, we're only going to be dealing with two of the tables, products primarily, and categories, because there's a relationship between categories and products. Okay, so the relationship between categories and products says that for each product there's one and only one category. And for each category, it says here there are one to many products, but we demonstrated the last time we did a tutorial, it should really say 0 to many products, because we did have a category, keyboards, that didn't have any products. Okay? And that's just what you get when you have an auto diagramming feature that is free. It's not perfect. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go through insert, update, and delete, and we're going to be working with products and categories. Okay? So, some thoughts here. What are the primary keys? Well, the primary key of products is product ID. The primary key of categories is category ID. Do either of them have foreign key fields, foreign key columns? Yes. Products has a foreign key to categories through category ID. That's what builds the relationship here. That's not the case in the other direction. Typically, we only point in one direction. And we typically point from the many side to the one side. So we've done it the right way. Okay, well, let's open up our workbench, MySQL workbench, and open a connection. And you can see that I have My Guitar Shop database here, but one thing I want to point out is that once you begin to do inserting and updating and deleting in your database, well, you really have to ask yourself, when you're starting a session, what state is my database in? Is it in some appropriate current state, or is it at some inappropriate current state? And I was recently doing I was recently practicing all the queries I'm going to show you, and I've got the My Guitar Shop database in a pretty messed up state. So what I want to do is I want to restore it. So I'm going to go up here and I'm going to click on the icon to open a script, and I'm going to go down to local disk, the Murach directory, the MySQL directory. I'm going to open up MGS ex start, which is My Guitar Shop exercise start files. And I'm going to select the Create My Guitar Shop script. And there it is. And without highlighting anything in the script, I'm going to click on the left lightning bolt and get it to run. Okay? So now I have a fresh copy of my database, and in fact, if you look over at the schemas in the Navigator panel, it's not showing My Guitar Shop. I'm going to have to come up and go to the refresh icon to the right of the title for schemas, and there's My Guitar Shop. Okay, and as long as we're here, let's open up the two tables that we're going to be dealing with, categories and products, and take a look at the definitions of the columns, for instance. Okay, so let's look at products. Okay, how can I look at the definitions of the columns? Well, the easiest way for me to do that is to come over here to the right-hand side when I'm over top of that row. Come over here, and I'm going to click on the middle of these three pop-up icons, one with a wrench. And that's going to show me all the columns and their definitions. So, product ID, category ID, product code, product name, description, list price, still have some more, discount percent, date added. Okay, and list price and discount percent are 10 digits overall, with 2 of them being to the right of the decimal point. Okay, that looks good. Now, do I have any foreign keys? How can I find that out? Come down here, all right, and see that we're really on, within the view that we're in the columns tab. Let's just click on the foreign keys tab. Well, there's one. So there is a foreign key defined. There's a constraint defined for the foreign key. It happens to be called products FK categories, which is the default name for foreign keys of this variety. And if we click on that line, we can see, okay, the reference table is My Guitar Shop categories. That's good. And if you look, it's pointing at category ID there. Well, that looks good. We do have a foreign key all set up. All right, now let's also go take a look at categories. And again, I'm gonna pick the wrench icon and see the table view for categories. And it's a much simpler table, 2 columns. Category ID is the primary key, okay? Category name is the only other column. Category name has to be not null and it has to be unique. Let's go back and look at those kind of rules for the products table. Okay, back to the products tab. Okay, go to columns again. So one of the things that you can see is that again, the product ID is the primary key. Most of the fields have to be not null. Okay. Looks like we don't have that for date added. All right. And one of the fields, the product code, has to be unique. And that's good because we're going to use the product code as maybe sort of an alternate key, right? And so if we're going to try to look up things by the by the product code from time to time, then it had better be unique. So here we're assuring that it's going to be unique. Okay, that's enough of that stuff. So let's close a couple of these babies. Okay, I'm going to leave up the create My Guitar Shop because I'm going to have to run that again. And here's the first one that I want to show you. Okay. So I've got to find my way back to my documents where I put my demos. And here are my demo examples for chapter 5. And the first one is just a pretty simple insert into products. So what I'm trying to do is insert a row into products. Okay. And I'm not showing a column list. Okay. So you'll remember that the rule is if you don't give a column list, then in your list of values, sorry, We have to say values here. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm absolutely wrong. Never mind. We do have a list of columns. Okay, it turns out that this one's not going to work anyway. All right, so that's why I forgot some of the details of it. Okay, so we have a list of columns. It's not all the columns. Okay, and we have a list of values. Okay, my second value is a null. What value is that? Well, that's the category ID. Okay, so what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to add a microphone. Okay, now I don't have a category yet for microphones. Okay, and you might say, oh, well, tell you what, I'm going to add the microphone now, even though I don't have a category for it. I'll just say that my category ID is null. Okay, and then I'll add the category later, and I'll come back and I will update the row in the products table. Could you do that if you wanted to? Well, let's see. Let's go down here and find our message. Our message is hiding, which I don't like. So our message is hiding. I don't want the history output, sorry. I do want the action output. Our message is hiding, and our message should say that it didn't work. Okay, so let me find a way to make sure that our message is not going to hide on us. Okay, how are we going to keep that from happening? Well, just like that. So we don't want the history output. We want the action output. There it is. There's the error code. Error code 1064. You have an error in your SQL syntax. How about that? Category ID. Well, I've got to give me the right error now. So I refreshed my screen and I changed it a little bit while you guys were waiting. And when I run this one now, I get a slightly different error. Error code 1048. Column category ID cannot be null. So my category ID, okay, which is my second value, is null. So I said, well, why don't I just use a null category ID? I know I don't have a category set up yet. I'll come back, I'll fix it later. And the answer is no, you can't do it. Because there is a foreign key constraint on products that says that you must be pointing to a proper line in the categories table. You can't get this insert to work. You could change the syntax around, but unless you have a proper category row to point to, it's not going to be fixed. All right, then let's try something else. Maybe we need to insert a category first. Okay, so here's a simple insert in which we are not showing a list of columns. Okay, so when we don't have a column list, then we need to provide values for all the fields. Okay, when we do provide a column list, then we only have to provide values for the lists for the columns that are listed in the column. And we have to hope that the columns that we listed are sufficient and the values are appropriate. So here there are only two columns in the categories table. I'm passing a null and microphones. Okay. Now, could I also pass something like default? Well, I think we could. In fact, I kind of like default a little bit more than null. Why? Well, because the first field, the ID, it's going to be generated for us. So we're not going to pass it a value, but it'd be nice, better documentation that says, well, we're just going to take the default value, which is going to give us whatever ID for that row that is the next one available. And then it's going to create microphones. Okay. All right. So before we do that, let's just go to categories and look at the data that's there. Okay, we've got 4 categories: basses, drums, guitars, and keyboards, and that's it. So let's come back to our insert, which I want to save because I think I have improved it. I'm going to run it. And it says that it worked. I got a green response, and it says 1 row's affected. So let's go back to the categories data view and refresh it. And there it is. So it added the next sequential category ID, 5, and it gave it the category microphones. Well, that's just what we wanted, so I'm feeling good about that. Okay, so what could we do next? Well, let's see what I've cooked up for you. Okay, so now if we, what I did is I identified a couple 3 products that are microphones. Okay, as the person who does a lot of recording, I use microphones. I don't really use all those instruments, so I know more about how to find microphones than how to find electric guitars to put new examples into the database. So here is an insert on products. I'm inserting a single row, okay, and I'm listing the columns right here, and then I'm providing the values right here. Okay, so let's see. The product code we are providing, but not the product ID. Why? Because the product ID is one of those auto increment fields that it's going to generate for us anyway. The category ID, the product name, the description, the list price, the discount percent, the date ID. So here, what I have done is I have actually provided the category ID that I got by looking at the data over here on the data view. Now, is that cheating? Well, there was a time when I thought it was, but it's not really cheating. Most of you are not going to be doing inserts in the way that we're learning them here by hand. Okay? Well, how are you going to be inserting data? Well, when you go to insert data for your final project, I'm going to have you using the data view, right? So we just were looking at the data view for one of these guys for categories, I think, right? So let's just look at the data view for categories. It's right here. It's the right one, that one looks like a table. You can populate the database like this. And most power users would have some tool like Workbench to do it. Well, who's actually issuing the inserts, like the ones that we see here? People who are writing application programs, okay, that are populating the database. Those programs are composing SQL statements. The programmers are using the skills that we're learning in this class, okay? And so when they go to compose this SQL statement, will they know the ID number of the microphones category? Yeah, they probably will. And why will they? Well, they probably will have picked microphones off of some kind of a drop-down list. And when they picked it, we would have the information about its proper ID. So it is okay to use hard-coded IDs in your SQL statements. I'm going to show you an alternative to doing that, but using the hard-coded ID here of 5 for the category, that's going to work just fine. Okay, so before we add this Shure SM27 multi-purpose microphone, let's just prove to ourselves that we don't already have it in the products table. So let's go to the data view for the products table, and let's come down, and this, if we look through here, I don't see any product codes that start with Shure, so we don't have it yet. Okay, so let's do the insert. Okay, so I'm going to click on the lightning bolt, and it doesn't like my, oh, you know what, I was highlighted on that 5. If I do that one more time, I'm going to have to hurt myself. Okay, so there we go. We run that. That worked just fine. Okay, so let's go look at products and see our new product. All right, we can't quite see it here, so I'm going to give us a little more room. And we'll see, oh, there it is. It's a Shure SM27. Okay, and it's got the proper name. It's got the proper price. Has a list price of $299, and it has a discount percent of 10%. It's just what we wanted. So pretty easy to add a product, provided that we feed it a proper value for the foreign key in order to meet its foreign key constraint. Okay? All right. Let's see what else we can do. Let's try to, I want to show you what you would do if you're concerned that we are hard coding that category ID. Okay? Is there a way that we can make our code a little more robust and have the code actually find the proper category ID for microphones? And yeah, we can. Here's how we do it. So first of all, I want to show you that this is an insert that doesn't have a column list. So what's the implication of that? Well, I've got to provide a value for every field. Okay, so default is what I put in for the product ID because I'm expecting that to be generated. Okay, and then for category ID, instead of using category ID 5, which I looked up, I can actually have a subselect, a subquery that looks up the category ID in that other table. Okay, so I just say, instead of coding a 5 here, I just say select category ID from categories where category name equals microphones. And then I've populated the other fields. In this case, we are adding an instrument microphone, an SM94, a bargain at $223. Oh, and there's something that I didn't really call your attention to on the last one. If I want to insert the current date, I can use the function curDate. That's going to insert the current date and time into that date field. Okay, let's give it a run. And we ran it, and the insert worked. So let's go look at that. Let's go look at products. Let's refresh it. And let's go down to the bottom, and there we are. There's our Shure SM94. So for my purposes, either approach, the one where you, the one that I think is probably, a very pragmatic one, where you insert the category for microphones, and then you go and look at the table, see that you have a 5, hard code the 5 into the next insert. That's okay with me. You can do that. Or if you want to be a little classier, okay, you can put this kind of code in for the category ID, and then you haven't put any hard-coded value there. And it's maybe a little bit better, but the fact is, when you are writing the code, if you are the programmer who is writing the code that puts this query together, puts this insert together, you should have access to that ID value. Okay? So either way is okay with me. All right. So now I've got 3 microphones here at the end. Or just do I just have 2? No? So far I've just got 2. I'm sorry. Okay. I don't know how I did that, but let's refresh this and see how many I have. Yeah, I just have 2. I've got the SM27 and the SM94. Okay, that's good. And let's go and let's I've got one other one that I want to do, and I called them both D accidentally, which is how I missed this. I thought that we had one where we insert 2, we are inserting 2 rows. So in this one, I decided that we were not going to use a column list, because I was going to provide a value or the appropriate expression for every one of the columns. Here's the first row, here's the second. On both of these, instead of hard coding the 5 as the category ID for microphones, I did it the kind of classy way where I did the lookup. Okay. And this should give me 2 more microphones, a Shure DMK5752 and a Shure SM35. So let's run that, and that worked fine. Okay, so let's go back to one of our products views, refresh it, and now when we go to the bottom, we have got these 4 Shure products along the bottom. Their category IDs are all 5, which means they're all in the category microphones. Okay? So those are pretty good things to know about your inserts. All right, so let's go. I want to give myself some room here, so let's get rid of a couple of these guys, and get rid of this one too. Oh, I'm getting rid of stuff. Let's save that. We can save that one too. Okay. All right, this looks pretty good. So what are we going to do next? Well, we are going to update. So what's the first thing that we're going to do? Well, we're going to try to update one column on one product row. Pretty easy to do. So what does that look like? Well, I always like to begin with the use because then I'm sure to be connected to the database I want. That's the best practice, okay? And now I'm saying update my products, that's the name of the table, set discount percent equals 15. Okay, so discount percent is a column and I'm giving it a new value, 15. I think it was originally 10. We'll look before we run it. And we say where a product ID equals 13. And again, do we have to go and say, is it okay to hard code the product ID? Yeah, it is. Because in the real world, if you were writing the code that was going to concoct this update SQL statement, okay, somebody would have picked a product from a drop down or with a checkbox, and from that you would be able to deduce in your program the value, the proper value for the product ID that you wanted to change. Okay? All right, so before we do this, we're going to change it to 15% where product ID is 13. So let's just look at products and see what's there now. So product ID 13, if you come across, the discount on all these microphones is now 10%. So let's come back. Let's give it an update. It worked fine. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. This is a tricky thing. I highlighted use my guitar shop, okay? And that's all that ran. That's not what I wanted. So I don't highlight anything. Use the left lightning bolt. Now we're saying that we did one row affected, one changed. No warnings. Okay, let's go look at products. So we're expecting the row with product ID 13 to have a discount percent equal to 15. So we're going to have to update that. So we're updating the product view. And row 13, product ID 13 is the next to last. And there's our 15% right there. Well, that's terrific. That's just what we wanted. All right. Now, what are we going to do next? Well, let's do some more updating. Let's try to update 2 columns on one product row, just to show that we can, okay? And so again, we have the use, we have update products, we have the set keyword, and I'm going to set list price to list price, the current value for list price times 1.10. So I'm going to give it a 10% price increase, and I'm going to turn the discount percent to 15. Okay? Now you may say, well, it's already 15. Well, that's okay. Where product ID is equal to 13. So let's give it a run. And that ran okay. So let's go back to products. And let's refresh it. And go look. And we're interested in the next to last line. And so we can see that it had I think it had a $3.99 price, and this is 10% higher. And then we didn't actually change the discount percentage because it had been 15 more recently, and we just changed that. So what I'm doing here, which is running the query and then going and looking at the data, when you're learning, there's there's no substitute for this, right? Once you're confident that all these things are working under the covers, do you have to look every time you do something? No, that's silly. But now when you're in this kind of learning mode, it's a great practice. Okay, so we updated one column, we updated two columns. Okay, how about we update one column on all the microphone products? So how could we do that? Well, same kind of syntax, except that instead of saying that we want to control this by product ID and picking a single product ID, we're using this category ID. So everything that has a category ID 5, which means it's a microphone product, I want to change to 20%. Okay, let's give that a run. And that ran okay. So let's go back to products. And right now we have a combination of 10 and 15%. So let's refresh it. You know, before we ran that, that's what it was. And we'll refresh it. And look, they're all 20%. All the microphones are 20%. So we can do that pretty easily. All right, that's good. What else could we try? Well, I just want to show you that we could have done that same kind of update without having to hard code the category ID. If you're a person who wants to have more robust queries that would be maybe easier to run by hand, right? Which is kind of what we're doing when we're using this kind of super user mode. Well, you might want to do something like this. So instead of saying where category ID equals 5, I have a subquery. I say where category ID equal, and then in the parens, I have a select that finds the category ID where the category name is equal to microphones. And this we did this before. And just so we had sent all these to 20%, but I'm going to have a deep discount on Shure microphones, and so I'm going to set them all to 25%. So let's run it. It ran. Okay. Let's go back and find our products. Let's refresh that and come down and look at the discount percents, and all 4 microphones are at 25% off. Okay, so you know, you can update a row at a time. You can update a you can update more than one row at one time. One of the things I'm going to show you before we're done with this particular demo is that sometimes when you're running these things, let's go back to where we were. Sometimes when you're trying to update more than one row at a time, okay, you can come up with an expression that it will say, because you're not using a primary key in your expression for the where clause, you can't run the update in what's called safe mode. Now, I used to think that would happen every time that you were doing anything fancier than just saying category ID equal 5. But as you can see, we've run a couple of these things where we had a subquery and it picked a category ID on the basis of the category name. Now, it probably works because a category ID is the primary key of the category table. Okay? We're eventually going to see a query, an SQL statement that we're going to try to do here, where it's going to say, I can't do that while I'm still in safe mode. But we can do all the things that we've shown so far in safe mode, which is pretty good stuff. All right, what's next? Well, let's try to delete a product. Okay, so let's try to delete a product using the product ID. So product ID 11. Well, I'm getting sick of looking for things. So let's find what product ID 11 is. So product ID 11 is the first of our microphones, the Shure SM27. Okay. And let's look at what we say. We have the use, which is a good practice. Delete from products where product ID equals 11. Let's give that a run. And we got a green icon, one row affected. So let's go back to products. Okay, we have a row 11 before we made the change. Now let's refresh it. And we don't have a row for product ID 11 anymore because we deleted it. All right. What other kind of things can we do? Well, let's see. Why don't we try to delete all the product rows for one category ID? Okay. Can we do that? Sure we can. We can say delete from products where category ID equals 5. Okay. So I think we've got 3 left, but let's just go back and confirm that we do. So refresh it. Okay, so category D5 is the microphones, and we got 3 Shure microphones left. Okay, that looks good. So let's run the delete. Okay, we'll give it a run. It says that it ran okay, 3 rows affected. Let's go back to products. And let's refresh. And come down, and there are no microphones down there anymore. They're gone because we deleted them. What else could we do? Well, I'd like to show you that we could do the same delete using not the hard-coded ID, but a subselect, a subquery, where we used the name. Unfortunately, there aren't any right now, but we could execute it. Okay, it ran fine, but there is 0 rows affected. Okay, now let's refresh our memory. When we're doing this kind of testing, we can easily get to the point where we get the database in a state where we can't really test what we want to test. Okay, so you have to have the patience to go back and put this thing in the state where you'd like to have it. All right, so how can we do this? Well, I want to get to right where I was before I deleted all those microphones. Okay, so let's do this. Let's go all the way back to the beginning. And I remember I've got the script there to reset the database. All right, there it is. Let's run it. All right, I reset the database. I can even see the schema went away in the list of schemas. Okay, but there's a new one there when I refresh it. Okay, that's good. All right, I'm going to close all of these guys. I'm going to give myself a little more room here too. I don't know why I was so generous with that panel, but I was. Okay, and if we come up here on those tabs and we right click, we can say close all. This doesn't work so well in the Mac version, but it works in my Mac version. I think I have a close all but this that works. Okay, My close all does not work in my Mac version. It's a good year and a half old now, I think. Okay, so what kind of things could I run? Well, if you remember, I tried to run this first insert and it had a problem. Then I inserted the category. My category is still there. Oh, let's look at that. Let's try to insert that category again. Okay, so I already have inserted microphones, right? Can I insert it again? Let's see if I can. It let me. Ooh, that's not good. Okay. Now, why is that not good? Well, let's look at the tables, and let's look at the categories. Okay, and let's do this. Huh. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't have the microphones. That's right. So, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Of course, I didn't have the microphones because I reset the database. I reset the whole thing. I was not only at the part where I had deleted all of my microphones out of products, but I didn't have the category yet either. Okay, let's try to run this a second time now. What's going to happen? It's not going to work. And why is that? Well, because the designer of the database was smart enough to say that category name, even though it's not the primary key, has to be unique. Well, that's going to help me a lot when I want to do things like I've done in my queries later on. So that was a good idea. All right. So now I've got my category there. And what else can I do? Well, I've got a couple things I want to add. Let's insert a product column using a hard-coded ID. I think we got to run this guy. That ran okay. And let's, I've got two Ds, so I'll run them both. And we'll run the other D. Okay, and that ran fine. So now I have all of my microphones. How do I know? Let's go look. Let's go to products and go to the data listing, that third pop-up icon, and go down the bottom, and there are my 4 Shure microphones. Okay. So the question that I had was, if I wanted to do a delete, okay, using the category name rather than the hard-coded category ID, could I do that? Well, let's just see. I've got 4 of them there, and that worked just fine. So if I come back to products, before we made that change, we had 4 microphones. Now let's do a refresh. My 4 microphones are gone. Okay, good. Now, I just want to point out that we were able to code those fancy versions of these things where we did the subquery to look up the key for the category for microphones. We were able to do that just fine in safe mode. Worked great. Now there are some things that it doesn't want to do in safe mode. It doesn't want to delete a lot of rows at one time if you haven't given it a very tight expression. So for instance, if we try to delete all the product rows, okay, we just say delete from products, okay? If it wasn't for safe mode, this might delete all the product rows. Okay, we're going to find out in a minute that it won't, but we can go look. So let's run this. It goes, oh no, you are using safe update mode and you tried to update a table without a where that uses a key column. how do we disable safe mode? Okay, well, go up to the menu, click on Edit, then click on Preferences. I happen to know that safe mode is one of the properties of the SQL editor, and it's all the way down at the bottom. So it's now checkbox on. It says it requires us to reconnect. So let's check box off, say OK. All right, let's close. Let's just close our connection right here. Come on, connection. Okay, let's open a connection again. All right. And here's that thing that tries to, well, now let's close all these. I don't know, we're not pointing at the thing that I thought we would be. We want to point at this delete all product rows. So can I delete all the product rows with the safe mode off? No. Okay. Why not? Well, because it has a foreign key relationship to another table. Okay, so it's not going to allow us to break a foreign key constraint. Well, what table? Well, it turns out that some of our order items, let's go back and look again. It turns out that some of our order items are pointing to these products. So we can't get rid of all of the products. You know, even if it would do it when we turn off safe mode, it's not going to do it because we've included rows that participate in relationships with order items. So it's very hard to get this thing to do bad stuff. So I seem to be able to do pretty well with this kind of thing in safe mode. So there are times when I take it out, but to tell you the truth, the major time I take it out of safe mode is when I'm trying to run the queries of students who have taken it out of safe mode, and they only run when it's out of safe mode. Somehow I seem to be able to get most of my work done in safe mode. So now if we did that and we come back again, now the complaint is going to be, oh, no safe mode. No, it's going to complain. Oh, I know what it was. We need to reconnect. So we need to reconnect, and then we do that, and it's going to say we're not in safe mode. Okay, so I like to leave it in safe mode. So we've come to the end of the tutorial demo. If you're trying to do inserts, updates, or deletes that only involve a single table, not a table that's in a relationship with another table, well, they're pretty straightforward. Okay? Once you have a relationship between the table that you're trying to insert into and another table, then it gets trickier. And that's what we've tried to explore here in this demo. So best of luck on the exercises, and I'll say bye until next time. Bye-bye.